everybody. Hello. We had a little short delay, but it's okay. A little short delays are quite all right. And let's see who we got in the chat. And then also we had a little bit of a shorter entrance. I was working on a video earlier, and it was so heavy. It was really heavy for me to actually make this video, and I decided to quit because I didn't want it to bring up a lot of past trauma from people and everything. And it actually, I teared up a little bit, so we had a little shorter entrance today to kind of keep it light and to commemorate if everything's been lost within Ukraine and then talk about Ukraine. So Lori's here, Aries Dragon, Dave, I'm so glad you're finally here. Punenzion, Punishment. Let's see, Victoria, Pigeon Mac. Pigeon Mac is here. I love everybody that's over here and supporting the stream. So it is an open panel. It's a Q&A about Ukraine. To give a little bit of backstory, today is the day that Russia has invaded Ukraine 1 year ago. And today was extremely difficult day for me and my family to actually watch everything what's happening, try to contact all of our family and friends back in Ukraine and figure out what is going on, if it's real, if it's not. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the tactics at the very beginning that Russians were expecting to have and the battles they expected to win. And they thought that Ukrainians are going to lay their arms and become either part of Russia or basically having Ukrainians suppressed under Russian regime. And it didn't happen. He realized that Ukrainian people are extremely patriotic and they wanted to fight for their country. They wanted to fight for their freedom, and they had enough. Another reason why this war is dragging out for so long, and it's been a year right now. So let me drop a link into the chat, and we have a couple people are coming in to, let's see, to have questions. So yeah, it is a sad remembrance. It's very sad remembrance, and we'll talk about why. I have a couple of videos to show, and then some of the statistics and everything. Lori, welcome.
Hey, welcome.
I'm so glad you're able to make it. Yeah, I
Hold
was
on, I've got.
no
Okay,
worries.
I'm good.
Yeah, I was really working on the video. I wanted to have like a really good entrance, a longer entrance, and I had to give up. I had to give up on the video. I got a little teary-eyed and I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I putting myself through this torture?
I bet
Yes,
it's emotional after.
it
I mean,
is.
that's your home, your family, everything that you went through, and looking back. But there's also got to be some pride.
It is. I'm extremely proud of all of the Ukrainian people and then how they're standing up and how they're fighting. I'm also proud of a lot of the different countries and people with military experience. They actually went and wanted to fight on Ukrainian side, and the Ukrainian military had to build a separate brigade for foreign fighters. And at the very beginning, the foreign fighters were kind of it got a little sporadic, and by now they actually filtered through a lot of negative people, the one that just out there to get military experience and come back. Especially there's a warning out there. It's an international warning for white supremacists are trying to get into Ukraine just so they can get
The
just so they
training.
yeah just so they can get the training.
Well, I have two things I wanted to bring up with you about that. One, I heard about the Russians who deflected and are starting the Russian army to fight on the side of the Ukraine people,
Yes,
which
yes,
is amazing.
they are.
Um, and some of the Ukraine soldiers are actually here in America getting some specialized training to help you guys over there in the fight too.
Exactly, exactly.
So
Adjust my camera a little bit. Yeah, Aries Dragon, welcome.
Hello.
So Aries Dragon is my mom.
well, hi, Aries
if
Dragon.
anyone hasn't figured that out by now.
Hello. How are you, everyone?
So she's here to talk a little bit about her experience that she experienced last year because we were able to raise $5,000 last year so we can purchase some of the medical it's a nursing stations for a small hospital in Ukraine in Odessa region where our family is from. So we're really just doing our little part as much as we can and helping out our hometown in Odessa region. So it's like helping out your neighbors or anybody else who's out there. And but we're just here to answer any questions. And I've been actually, let's see, desperation is heavy, but immortal spirit lifts desperation and hopeless seeming circumstances my heart to all.
I did have one question that I seem to hear a lot from a couple communities
Of course.
is what exactly is that is being needed with the fundraiser and what the fundraiser is
Okay.
exactly for and about.
Okay. Mom, can you mute your mic or have your pup
Hold
or
on,
have
my
your
dog is
puppies?
barking. I
So okay.
cannot.
So the fundraiser
Um,
that you want to talk about it, Mom? I'm gonna pull the
what is
fundraiser up.
question?
About the fundraiser. So I'm gonna pull the fundraiser up as well. So so the fun by the time she comes back here. So the fundraiser is really it's really for the small hospital in outside of Odessa. It's in Odessa region. One of the reasons is because a lot of the medical supplies are going to the larger hospitals, larger cities, and especially the cities where they're closer to the front lines, where the soldiers need the most of the medical supplies. By the time they get to the small villages where there isn't any fight or occasional mortar hit or anything else, those villages are suffering. Those villages are cut off from supply chains. They cut out. Sometimes they can't even get to them because they're so remote. And those villages are the ones that are most important to keep in mind as well, because yes, there is a war going on, but the supply chains are cut off. The people are suffering. Even little things like adult diapers. You wouldn't even think that some of the hospitals require adult diapers, and there's a shortage of that. There's a lot of shortage of different medicine. And so, what my mom did last year, she went and established a couple of the supply routes, and she was able to find the different warehouses where she can buy from in Moldova and in Ukraine and transfer those supplies to the hospital. So, last year, we were concentrating on maternity ward and bringing all the supplies and everything to the maternity ward, anything that they need, from small blankets to anything medicinal. And she also bought two nursing stations for to like be for basic vitals because everything is just falling apart over there, and it's just the equipment is old, the things that they could not be able to get because they're not part of the war efforts. But there's still people living in there. um Tim yesterday brought up a really good point. He said that even though we funnel so much money to different programs within the United States, and some of the programs are homeless, it's still about those people that are taking the food and collecting everything that they can to help out the homeless population within their backyard, right? So this is exactly what it is. Besides them being homeless, they just don't have the supply routes that are actually needed for basic human needs
A lot
within
of
the
people
hospitals.
forget about the smaller villages and stuff that
Mm-hmm.
even if they're not being war torn right now, it's also a safe place for other people to get to from those regions that are taking up extra supplies and stuff that are needed. And much valued. So
Exactly. So this is the fundraiser that mom is doing. It is GoFundMe. I know there's some controversy and everything about GoFundMe scams, and but this is how you help. This right here, it's literally my own mother with her own goodness of heart is going to Ukraine and purchasing
You
those
make me
supplies.
blushing.
Welcome. Do you want to talk about some of the experiences that you had last May?
Not last night, last year.
Last
Last
May.
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 Yes, last May. So we are I actually know right now what this war smell looks like. Smell dirt and gunpowder together in some kind of chemical I cannot describe. We are living from store, like the we go store just to buy basic needs what we need to eat, and we just heard the sirens, the jets flying so low. We jump in the car and started driving, and behind us, boom boom, and I actually have a pictures and everything, and we are driving so fast. I do not even remember, and 15 minutes driving I started breathing. I cannot breathe. My heart looks like stop and everything. But what I wanted to say, nowhere place in Ukraine to save right now. Even little villages can be like in a one bomb and destroyed. So I through this day I cannot speak about this day, what we experience, and when we pull it out in some from the road in a gas station, and I started just 15 minutes after I started feeling what happens, and it's so like I don't know how the soul that doing this, like I cannot describe these feelings. Last night I cannot sleep. I have dreams over and over sometimes about this day, and the smell of the gunpowder is not a kind of gunpowder from the just the shooting gun. It's more thick, stinky. I don't know. It's kind of additional chemicals. Miss Lori, Triple T probably know about this specific smell of
it's
this.
more
Yeah.
accurate, acrid, acidly, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
this is pictures of the stores. All this window is black and everything, and this is my family actually have a little house on the prairie. I call it. They paint the roof. They paint the roof like Ukrainian flag, and the guy pull it out and say, "You need to paint it over." I told him I'm not going climbing there because I'm so proud of this. That's why we painted. And this is actually movie. I don't know. Did you hear the siren?
I
hold
don't.
on. You
And this is where we are right there, like the gas station I just talked about. That where is this black smoke coming out? That's where we drive from. And when we driving,
Oh, we lost her. Wait, we lost her. Mama, we lost you.
terrible. Like we open
Okay.
the window, all the everything crashing in the cemetery, or all the headstones, all the bones, and everything like flying out. It's just
So
so.
so
That's
this is
where we are,
this is
right?
a new residential complex right
Right.
here. And
Behind
then
them, is the store. That's where we go.
so that's
Yeah.
one of the things, it's devastation within this war is a lot of hospitals were bombed, schools were bombed, churches were bombed, residential homes were bombed. Those are war crimes. Those are
Right.
war crimes that people don't talk about. And
Child care is
under
terrible.
Geneva under Geneva Convention, those count as war crimes. We
And
had
this is the picture of the man. I met. His wife is working with my sister, so he in the hospital stay. I purchased, and the money what is left from the fundraiser here, all in the box is first aid supplies, is medicine and everything. There you can buy medication in the pharmacy what you needed for the first aid. Even lidocaine is not for prescription. Lidocaine syringes, you can purchase this. It's not
so
like
these
here
are
in,
all syringes.
right, it's not like here in America you have to have a prescription. There people in the pharmacies, like my best friend Dora, she's a pharmacist there, and she helped a lot to load at this. And this is my used to co-workers. I used to work in this hospital, and we bought this nursing monitoring station for the patient monitor station. We spent the think around $1,200. We purchased this there. Here it will be $6,000 or $8,000. There is like $1,200. So this is how the help we help them. And here is the big billboard. It called a Russian Karab
Russian
F
ship,
words. Yes,
Russian
F
ship,
you.
go fuck yourself.
Right. You remember this little island? It's right on the coast. They call it Snake Island. You probably heard the story when the Russian take it. Actually, they kill couple and take it in a on a what's this called, in a refugee camp, Rostov, and that is the first war Russian Marine, Ukrainian Marine tell for the Russian boat, go F yourself.
So basically, what happened is at the very beginning of the war, the Russians occupied the Snake Island. It's right outside of Odessa. And they basically called in over the radio and said, Ukrainian soldiers, this is Russian ship, surrender your arms. And the Ukrainian soldiers said,
Go
Russian
F you.
ship, Russian ship, this is Ukrainian soldiers, go fuck yourself. And then right after that, they were able to sink the ship and take their island back as well.
Yes, this island is the coastal island between it's right between between the what's it called, this international waters and start in the Ukraine.
Okay, so I have a question that I'm sure a lot of people have. Is it was so hard to get you, ma'am, and your
Uh-huh.
family out, right, Zanime?
Yes.
How are they able to get in? Is it easier to get back in with the new supply chains now that you established a way out, or how are you getting back in? A little bit seems like easier than it was getting out,
Well, I
So
am United States citizen.
right?
So for me is in and out. I can stay in the Ukraine 180 days without visa. So for them is the more harder. Um, and Zename can explain all the road she took it to bring Tanya and Sophia here. Is took it 24 days. For
28,
me,
28
oh,
days.
28 days. For me, it's only 16 hours flight.
I mean, as dangerous it is, it seems like it was harder to get the Ukrainian citizens
Yes.
out, but it seems like
Yeah.
Well,
it's easier to get in now during
no,
It,
this
it's
it
time.
in and out too, not bad for me. I am not going like flying direct to Ukraine. I'm going through the around through the Moldova, or I think in maybe Poland this time. You're going from here to Turkey, from Turkey to Moldova. In Moldova, my friends drive Moldovan friends drove me through the Ukrainian border. One of my classmates, he's working in the custom right now. He walked me through the custom, and other my best friends and my family waiting me on the other side of the Ukraine, picking up in the car and driving to Odessa.
So the
Odessa
borders,
is
the borders are a little bit easier to cross right now. They
right,
are open. They've been open. One of the reasons it was harder to cross at the very beginning is because there was a large influx of refugees. Actually, I have the numbers right here. So over 18 million of refugees escaped
Okay.
Ukraine and then through the multiple borders. And that's why it was really hard. For example, my cousin spent over 24 hours sitting in a huge traffic jam just to get through the border of Moldova.
Okay.
But right now, the borders are a little bit eased up because there aren't Ukrainians allowed to leave unless it's elderly or single women with children. But now they're actually stopping women as well because there's a lot of like I said, it's 18 million people fled the country.
Okay.
So that means that stores, supply chains, soldiers, even though the soldiers are out there in fighting, but somebody still have to run the operations. For
right.
example, I just talked to Tanya today and asked how her parents are doing, like how my mom's brother's doing, and they said they have been out of power for 3 days already. For 3 days, and it's because they have their own generator, but it's because the gas is extremely expensive and they can't afford a lot of the things because it's extremely expensive. So they have to either get gas through bordering countries or somewhere else that they can actually deliver it to them.
I think you
Odessa,
guys wouldn't have never be attacked if they didn't think that America had weak gut leadership now. So
right.
hopefully, maybe it gets rectified next
Mm-hmm.
year, and you will see a strong leader put back where he should be, or a new one, and Russia will realize I messed up. I need to get my butt out of here and
Yeah.
help you guys rebuild and bring your country back to the glory that you guys, or not even the glory, but the love of the country that you guys have for your country.
So
Right.
Dave said perhaps there's some guerrilla attacks inside Russia. There inside Russia right now, what I hear through the different channels, because we don't listen to Russia news, it's all nothing but propaganda. And I'll get into the propaganda in a minute, in a little bit, about like what actually been spread within Russia. So inside Russia, they are slow protests because there have been so many regulations have been passed to not able to protest, not able to even use the name war. There are people standing out with blank signs and getting arrested, and it's getting more brutal and brutal. And the fact that even slightly you start speaking out or start like asking about where's my soldiers, did they come back from Russia, where's my son, and everything else, those people are getting, they're following them, the government officials are following them, the government, they basically been silenced. It This kind of silence hasn't been happening since the Soviet times,
Since
The
especially,
Stalin
USSR
time.
fell.
yeah,
Yep.
Right.
during the Cold War when the Iron Curtain came in. So I'm sure there are people out there sabotaging some stuff. And for example, I heard one military base actually shut its doors down completely and not letting people go in and sign up for the war. And I think they shut it down for some stupid reason, for like, I don't know, some food poisoning or something. But it's because there is a silent war going on within Russia. And this is not a Russian war, it's a Putin's war. Russian a lot of Russian people are completely against it as well. There are so many Russian refugees that actually
Right.
fled neighboring countries, whoever could let them in, like Georgia and Turkey and everywhere else. And then there are people my age. There are people are who are part of the social media, part of being aware of what is happening in the world. So yeah, I'm sure there are some kind of sabotages are happening, and there's a lot more arrests are happening, and oppression within Russia. And what Russian people are really known for is overthrowing the governments. Look at early 1900s with the Bolshevik Revolution. Look at Stalin, right? Look at perestroika in 1992, the fall of communism. So, and the kind of to put it in a little perspective, this is 2023. President Putin has been in power since 2000.
Yep.
That's
and
23 years.
and he is get himself again to be becoming president again. And I wanted to answer one of the question, David, part of the question. I don't know how they translate in English, but the partisan war is everywhere. Like, and what is how you can translate the partisan?
Partisans, it would be oppression, not oppression. It would be. I'm gonna get it to you in a minute.
Like, the people, not
Opposition.
yeah, oppositions. That's what's inside the Russian right now. Russia right now, different type of the Ukrainian opposition. That's maybe that happens.
And they're fighting with you guys too on
Right,
alongside.
right.
So
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow I'm going to the
There you go. Freedom
rally.
fighters. Freedom
Yeah,
fighters.
ready to go. Yes, David, freedom fighters. Tomorrow in San Francisco, we have a rally, and actually, it's a Ukrainian Russian rally. The people who stay beside the Ukraine Russian people coming together in Pier 39 tomorrow to stand up for Ukraine.
Yeah, and there's been a support all throughout the war, all throughout the world. My apologies. So one other thing is the UN. The UN basically voted a couple of days ago, and all of these countries are voted to help Ukraine and to basically said that yes, this is a crime war. There are only 7 countries that voted against it, and there were like over 200 countries present.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
And it
and
would have
those,
never happened if Putin didn't know that he could get away with what he was doing.
exactly.
In all honesty.
So there are I don't have actual facts about this, but there are rumors through Telegram, through Ukrainian, different Ukrainian Telegram channels that are basically Russian soldiers. When they're coming in, they're laying down their arms and they're changing the uniforms and to fight on the Ukrainian side. I don't know how true that is or not, and I really do believe that this is happening. But you have to take a you have to take a look at who is fighting on Russian side. So people who are fighting on Russian side at the beginning, they were actual soldiers. They were actually people who are drafting because within Russian system there's still a draft going on. A 18-year-olds to 27-year-old, right? And they just came in. How it started, they started to have a training on outskirts of Ukraine, and then it turned into the invasion, which they called it a humanitarian mission. And right after that, after they basically realized that there are soldiers are dying, and Russians are not reporting. They're not even allowed to count how many their own soldiers are dying. They start realizing that this war is going to get escalated. And because they just came in, they wanted to see if Ukrainian people just lay their arms. They're like, oh yeah, we'll take you back. No, that's not what happened, because Ukrainian people are strong. So they started recruiting prisoners. They started recruiting prisoners, right? Basically, prisoners that have very harsh terms like 10 years plus, very, very hardcore criminals. They said if you go fight in Ukrainian war for 6 months, you can come back and get everything exonerated. So now it's been over 6 months. So all of those prisoners are going back into the society of Russia. They're coming back with PTSD. They're coming back with everything that they saw. And that's
Bloodthirst
another
too.
reason, yeah, another reason why you saw so much brutality happening within Ukraine, because those brigades, those criminal brigades, are fighting brutally, and they were run by civilian entities.
Yeah, they
So,
call it Wagner Group. They
mhm,
are fighting in Syria and other countries, and
ex-
that's what they do.
so now they start doing a draft. They few about back in November, they came out with a policy of any able man between ages of 18 and 30, I believe, is needs to go to fight to war. So everybody started getting little letters in their houses to go to fight to war. And that this is where you start seeing a large influx of people fleeing Russia, especially young men with their families, or they would leave the women behind, their families behind, and then they would flee Russia. They would fly out, they would drive to any kind of bordering countries that they can. And after that, they start cracking down, Russians start cracking down a lot more. And the fact that like a government is suppressing all of this information and feeding all of this propaganda to all these other people, because the people, like I said, people my age who your guys age, who are very in tuned into the world news, who are very in tuned into the social media, they knew exactly what was happening at the time. But in your typical Russian society, you constantly have news going on, and then the only news stations are left behind is um, political propaganda, government ran news stations that are feeding all of this BS to them, saying like Ukrainians are Nazis, we're doing denazification, we're doing all of this stuff, we're being heroes in here, and now the narrative is heading the West, creating this war and everything. So yeah, it's getting escalated to the point. At first, it was the fight, now the now it's up to the people. Now it's up to Russian people to actually wake up and see the truth. And
If they don't, we're looking at, if people can't see the similarities of Hitler. Hitler needed the power of all extra land. He wanted all the land so he could fill it full of bodies that he could put in as his soldiers and control,
mhm,
and keep invading the smaller countries first and use their families
exactly,
I'm
as
agree with you, Miss
hostages.
Lori.
So people just got to be very leery about people that are so power thirsty that they need invasions, because that's just a shield or a beard just to cover what they're looking for.
exactly. So China has been not saying they're joining Russia, and then they're not saying that they're supporting Ukraine, but there were talks actually today to China ask President Zelensky to at least call ceasefire for one day. And I believe Zelensky didn't like the compliance, but they are calling a ceasefire just for one day, but they're still protecting themselves. So, but another thing you have to understand, well, China's kind of been in the middle ground. They don't want to take sides. And like I said, I don't have a crazy political background or anything. I do have some background in international policies that I can really get into down into the deep weeds of all of that, but this is not about China.
Yeah. And they're
So,
not really neutral. They're going to ride the middle while they're supplying weapons on this side and shaking hands on
mhm,
this. I mean, I'd be leery of a ceasefire too for one day. Why? Why? It's not just to restock Ukrainian people.
mhm,
Exactly, exactly.
exactly,
They're
Yeah,
always got their hand in stirring the pot, because then they could come in and take over pick through the leftovers like buzzards.
yeah,
exactly,
or fly over some drones and check. Oh, hold on, let me check this way.
or a balloon, several
Yeah,
balloons.
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Balloons.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They're diversion. So you look up here at the pretty little balloon while they're scoping out everything to get a feel of what they can hit or where they're going to go.
exactly.
Yeah.
I always I never been politician, and I am kind of stay away from political presence in my heart, but I always kind of try be neutral between the everybody.
Mama
And
Switzerland.
Yeah.
no, I'm a Switzerland, right? I'm a Switzerland in my family too.
I got
And
involved a few years ago and I keep my eyes open and I like to pay attention and
Mm-hmm.
it fascinates me.
Yeah, it fascinates me as well. And I'm Switzerland as well. It's because I want to see all the sides. I want to see the facts. I want to see how everything plays out, and
in
it's
the
interesting.
right, and I always thinking politics is game, but people who Switzerland always hurting,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
like in the Ukraine right now. I don't know how this politician or what is this Putin on the head, but my family is there. My family is still hurt. And not only family, my patient, I care about them many years. I'm working in the hospital, and they are hurting. The kids, look at them, how many kids Russian take it to the adopted to the Russian family. What's going on? They cannot produce their own children. Why they need the Ukrainian children to take it to the Russia? Why?
Yeah, so that's a thing. They were collecting all the Ukrainian children, putting them in the buses, and then and deporting them or importing them to Russia.
Yeah, they're putting them in
Saying,
military schools
Yeah,
yeah,
to start
it's
training them
well,
young.
that's what happened during World War
that's
II.
Yep.
exactly that's what Hitler did it.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Brainwash them when they're that young, that gullible, so they don't think for themselves. They believe this is the adults. They're protecting us. They're feeding us.
Mm-hmm.
We have to believe them.
So during grad school, I actually went. I started my grad school in. Well, I have a master's degree in the nuclear weapons policies and combat terrorism. So and during grad school, I started in 2014. 2014, this is when the Crimea invasion happened. Crimea invasion with from Russian side to take over Crimea. And what I did, I concentrated my studies because I had to have my second language was Russian for the Russian studies at the time because it was an international school. And what I did, I concentrated my study on the Russia-Ukraine relations and actually what is happening. So as I'm going through grad school, I have all of this content, all of these things that are happening between Russia and Ukraine and how it all started. It literally started in 2014 and in 2015 when Russia took over Crimea and started an opposition fighting party in Lugansk and Donetsk region, and they constantly keep fighting and fighting and fighting. But also that it brought in a lot of the military experience to Ukrainian soldiers as well, because they already been to the front lines. They already seen how the Russians operate.
Right.
And so since then, there are so many different supports and trainings that Ukrainian soldiers actually attended worldwide in Canada, in United States, in Germany, in Poland. They were doing all of this international training on the different weapon systems, on the different supply chains, and everything else. And so the Ukrainian military became robust and they became more of a Western military. So that's what Putin didn't expect. He thought that he just gonna come in like he did in 2014 and try to take over Crimea, which he did, and he was successful with it. But he thought this is exactly how it's gonna go, but it didn't,
Nope.
and that's what he went wrong. He literally they thought it's gonna be 3 day war, 3 day war that turned into 1 year right now. Yeah, so it's very interesting for me um to actually see how everything played out because I was so deep into the weeds since 2014 with the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict that that's why I'm here. Ask me any questions. Ask
Now,
me.
have you noticed every time Ukraine is in Crimea and all the smaller ones are looking to be invaded, look at the years and look at
Hmm.
who's in the White House. Look who really is in power, where they get away with this because they each scratch each other's backs.
Yes.
A war is needed to get extra funding for certain programs on both sides of the street.
Yep.
Yeah. It's there's a lot more involvement obviously into it,
Yep.
and but when I did my studies, I truly concentrated on the operation side, that and then everything that is happening. Not as much political side because I wanted to stay out of that and be as neutral as possible I can. But I looked into it from a military standpoint, from the civilian uprising and how the civilian uprising does happen. For example, in downtown Kiev in 2014, there was a group of protesters. They came out with a Facebook page saying like, "Hey, let's go and protest this war that Russia is trying to take over Crimea." So they came out and protested. It was a peaceful college student protesters, and it escalated. From all of that, it just escalated even more and more. And it was under Lukashenko, because he was the Russian installed president within Ukraine, and so what he did, he started utilizing the Russian tactics of dispersing the protesters, and that's what he became a battle zone in the middle of Kiev between civilian people and military people and local police force. Yeah, and there's like so much more. Okay,
And where do
so
you think they learned that tactic from?
Russia.
And where did Russia learn it? China.
Well, Russia had its own tactics for since the communism time. So
Yep.
it's yeah, the Russian I should do well, I'm actually kind of in the middle of doing a little bit of a script writing for another video and do maybe like a 10-15 minute video about history of communism in my own words, and then how everything led to for Putin to be instilled into power, how he came from Eastern Germany, and he was stationed in Eastern Germany, and he was there during Berlin War, and he served on a very, very, very small, because he was a KGB agent, and he served in a very small area, and didn't even wanted to do anything with the uprising that was happening in Eastern Germany, and he was there during Berlin Fall, and he was just this little man that wanted to be a hero, and he made himself a hero. So
What similarities that you just even said coincide with Hitler between Germany, a little man with a savior
Napoleon,
complex,
Na-
Napoleon Dynamite? Yes. Throughout
Napoleon Dynamite.
history, well, yeah,
Yeah.
the spoof of him, but Bonaparte. I'm sorry, I said the yeah, thinking the
Bonaparte.
movie, but Bonaparte, yeah. But it's these. It's almost like these little. It's called the little man complex or short
Mhm.
man complex
Mhm.
or savior
Exactly.
complex. I mean, there's a whole list of complexes that fit, but you always see there is a similarity between what Hitler was doing
Mhm.
and what Putin is trying to emulate.
Exactly. That is exactly what it is. And so you can see a lot of the tactics. Okay, so one of the things in Bosnia, and when Bosnia war happened, and in Bosnia, the way their opposition started is with mothers. Mothers took it down to the streets and saying, "Where are my sons? What is happening? Why
Yeah.
is all of this out there?" So now you can see the Putin's tactics. He actually had this super staged interview with mothers in his office and everything, and so they can display their concerns. But come on, it was so staged. I don't even think they were in the same room. He just had a green screen behind him.
Hmm.
Yeah. So So he sees the patterns and he cracks down on those patterns right away, just like uprising with Pussy Riot. Do you remember where this group of women in Russia, they start doing an opposition towards the government, opposition towards Putin, opposition towards the church becoming part of the state, and there were just so many political things that they were doing, and they just get out there doing the political songs and doing some destruction, some of the stuff that like probably shouldn't have done, but they got arrested, and then they rose a lot of the support of the American stars, like Madonna came out and put support to the Pussy Riot. And so basically he saw that, he saw uprising, so he started putting laws against protest. If you want to protest, you can protest in this like tiny area. If you want to protest for something, if you create a protest, you have to submit 45 days ahead of time and approval for the protest. So there are like little laws. Now you can't even say word war without going to prison for a year or so. And even during Sochi, during Olympic Games, because this was the time where LGBTQ rights were coming up, and then during Sochi, he wanted to say like, oh yeah, we're all supportive and everybody can protest. He put specific areas to protest. They were 2 hours away from the actual Olympic Games. This is the only areas that you can protest.
Wow.
Yeah. So right now, before they're just like slowly doing it, but this is how you condition somebody. This is how you condition them. You say like, oh, stop it. Oh, stop it. Oh, and then stop it, and there's nothing they can do.
No.
And then he's been conditioning a lot of the people, a lot of the laws since 2000, since he got into power.
Robert, I don't think Russia, we have to worry about the nuclear possibilities. I know that's what the government likes to put in people's heads, especially on certain election times, but let's think about this in general terms, okay? If they use nuclear and they're trying to gain the power and take over the land, they've pretty much ruined the land. Nobody is going to do that nuclear because they all know that's the end. That is your last measure. So those are just fear tactics that all governments like to put out there to make people think. But if you look back and step back and you look at the broader picture, there's nothing to gain by using nuclear. So
Exactly.
it's their goal is to scare enough people to put enough boots on the ground to take over, to expand territory. That's what this is all about, is expanding and bringing other smaller countries into the fold. His goal is to bring back the USSR, is my belief. The one big superpower that used to be.
He doesn't want to bring back USSR. He wants to build new form of government. The new form of government is him in charge. He's like a tsar. He counts himself as tsar, like as a king of Russia.
And the only
He
way to
even
leave it.
Yeah, he even acts like one too, like with all this gaudy things in the backgrounds and everything. So yes, you're absolutely right about. Oh, by the way, we got a new sub, Spencer. Welcome.
Yep. Spencer,
And
I'm glad
so
you dropped by. Thanks.
you're absolutely right about the nuclear, because well, another thing is if he does get to the point, it's like, no, I want to send a nuke to either this country or this country, there are certain measures that you have to do to actually send the nuclear weapon, because it's not just one person that's saying like, oh, so the football, we here in America, we have the football, right? And then you press that red button, sends a signal to another group of people, and those group of people are getting prepared and making a decision how and what and where they're going to deploy it from, and then they go back and they're getting prepared, and then they have to do all the calculations and all the trajectories and everything else to make sure the payload is right, make sure everything is armed. So it's a whole process. You press that button. By the time you press that button, it's probably going to be 5 to 6 hours till that weapon is getting released, or maybe on a good day scenario, well, which is there's no good day scenario with nuclear weapons, right? But it could be like 30 minutes. But you have to think there are always other people behind that button, and those other people have a way. They have dignity. They have self worth. So there's
Safeguards.
a yeah, safeguards. There are so many safeguards and everything. And you know how in movies you always see two people turning a key and everything. It's because you cannot trust one person with such a high power.
No. And by the
So
time, think too, if he was to deploy a nuke, other countries would come in, and the odds that they do catch it are pretty good. And then the fallout will hit
mm-hmm.
him just as much as other people. It could land in the water, it could
Yep,
land on their lands and kill all their crops. So it's very risky. It's more of a blowhard, my gun's bigger than yours. I'm not going to use the other term, but look who's
it
got the
is.
bigger.
Yeah,
So that's all it is. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but to me, it doesn't. You put the pros and cons, and it doesn't outweigh. It just is not in anybody's favor to use that. Not for the goal that these dictators are looking at using it for.
yeah, exactly. And so, did you know that Ukraine used to have nuclear weapons and they gave that up because they wanted to be part? They wanted to be part of the European Union, but they also gave that up because they were under Russian oppression at the time, and they kind of said like, "Oh, well, you should just give up your nuclear weapons." Speaking of nuclear, so as of right now, there is something that we should be really, really worried about. In Zaporizhia, there's a nuclear power plant, and it has 4 nuclear power stations. If anything happens to that right now, it's under Russian regime. And last time, about 3 months ago, last time about 3 months ago, 3 4 months ago, they had actual power failure, and that could have caused the nuclear meltdown of that power plant. If the nuclear meltdown of that power plant happens, Chernobyl 10 times worse.
Yeah, that'll look like kitty play.
So they have I have it pulled up. So anyways, this is something that you truly should be worried about right now, because the IAEA, the International Atomic Agency, were trying to get in and to do an inspection so that way they can clear it. The Russian forces said no, not to do inspection because we're instilling our own reinforcement for that nuclear power plant. And obviously we can't trust the Russian forces right now, right? So as of right now, there are no news of what is happening with that nuclear power plant. Can
And
you
the
imagine?
EU is bad news anyway. So they just
Yeah,
got a lot of countries to disarm under their guise of it's better for, but yet they sit in the power and judge. And so
exactly.
a lot of
And
dirty groups trying to say that they're there for the best. When somebody tries to disarm a whole country, it's not
exactly.
for their safety.
So right here on the 6th February, the first rotation of IAA support and assistance mission in Zaporizhia was delayed. And this is from Nuclear Agency. And then the reason they say it was delayed is because obviously they couldn't get in into the Russian opposition zones. But what happened in 4th of March, nuclear power plant was shelled on the 9th of 4th of March last year and resulting fire. The fire, they're saying there it was extinguished, but that fire actually led to a lot of failures of the different systems within the nuclear power plant. And there was power. Once you cut off the power to that power plant, there will be, they call it a slow meltdown. A slow meltdown is like you're not gonna see big smoke like in the movies, like oh nuclear power. No, the small meltdown. That's what happened in Chernobyl as well. When if you follow some of the Chernobyl, the meltdown went underground and it looked like a big elephant foot. it was nothing but a lot of hot radioactive stuff that melted down. So, and then they didn't report it for like months later, right? So this is something that I've been keeping my eye on, just to see, because it hasn't been lately in the news, because it's not the latest and greatest story.
Yeah.
Nuclear stuff.
But I was only supposed to Tim run late, but it's been an hour. I have to help him with the dogs and get dinner before we have to go live. But I do appreciate you having me up here.
Thank
Um,
you, Lori.
I hope I helped a little. I did, like I said, I
You
was
you
asking
did.
a couple questions from other people too. Um, listen to what she's got to say, guys. And if you could help, if you'll show your GoFundMe page again, there's a lot of people. Um,
It's in the description as well, and I'll
there
drop
you
a
go.
link. Yeah, I'll drop a link.
But
And
I thank you for having me up here.
thank you so much for coming.
All right,
And
everybody, have a great night and much love and blessings to you and your family, especially those still over in the Ukraine.
thank
Xanamay.
you, thank you.
All right. Good night, all.
So this was wonderful. I love having people on a panel. It's just it's very lovely to actually carrying on a conversation with somebody. It's easier for me to gather my thoughts. So this is the GoFundMe page, and we're about 700. Even though the $700 is still gonna go a long way, but we are truly looking to raise about 10,000, because there are crates and crates of medical supplies that needs to be purchased in Ukraine. Okay, so I'm gonna send this in a chat. It is also in the description. But if you don't want to do the GoFundMe, because they do charge quite a bit of a fees, so I do have a Cash App and PayPal. It's through this crafty place. It's our family business, and it's literally going to go towards all of this. And we'll keep up all the updates and everything on the GoFundMe, and I'll do the all updates on my community page, so that way be as transparent as we can where all the money are going to. Isn't she amazing? This was very lovely of her to actually stop by and then do this with me. So there, let's see if you guys have any, questions or anything. Okay. Okay, so there are a few videos that I did wanted to show you, and then I think this is a good way to get into the videos right now. So one of the things that Zelensky was reflecting on today, because it marks 1 year anniversary, is he said that the worst thing that happened so far in Ukraine was Bucha. Bucha was legitimate genocide of civilian personnel. They were digging mass graves. And I remember at the time when the Bucha got took over, all of us were trying to get onto the maps, and we're trying to do the little time lapse of the maps where the mass graves actually came to be. And they were digging little strips. And I don't want to get into the horrors, like the true horrors of Bucha, but all throughout Ukraine, they have 13,287 casualties as of today, and some of those casualties are 954 children. Just gonna let that seep in for a little bit. 954 children. Now tell me how this is not a genocide. What did children ever do to you? It's terrible because, well, exactly, Pigeon. Exactly, Robert. So, since a year ago, since last year, this day, I've been every single day catching on the news that is happening within Ukraine, catching on everything, every single bit of information, everything that I can lay my hand on even to look at the propaganda, just to see the comparison, just to see what Russia is feeding into the propaganda of the Russian personnel, the Russian people, Russian population, and then just to see how much lies and everything that they have been spreading, because Ukrainian people have been transparent, been very transparent about exactly what is happening on the ground, for the reason being to fight propaganda that is fed on the Russian televisions, to fight a propaganda that, and I do have to say that everything that I do say, it's on my own accord. I do have a disclaimer as well in my description, because anything and anyone who speaks up within Russian walls against this war, against this brutality, are getting blacklisted. They have to put even all the YouTubers, all the Russian YouTubers out there that are actually spreading the truth, actually spreading everything that they can about what is happening on the ground. And they got blacklisted. They have to put a disclaimer now, they are foreign agents. Think about that. You get a 20-year-old that a YouTuber that talks about like the realities of everything that is happening is getting blacklisted because now that he has to be, or she has to be, a foreign agent. That's it, because a lot of the news stations, a lot of actual news stations within Russian territory, they literally just hanged everything up and they left the studios. They got closed down. So a lot of the news stations are getting run within Russia are state-run news stations. So I wanted to show you a couple of videos. Let's see, where did it go? Okay, so one of the videos is Ukraine War, is by Professor Michael Clark. He looks at the Russian military failures. Let's see. Bear with me over here. How utterly offensive and insensibly bigoted. What just happened? Statement is the face of reality of your life. The web is full of morons. Yeah, indeed. All right. Share, add it top. I just want to make sure you actually guys can hear it this time. I think I'm getting a little bit better at this.
More now on the war in Ukraine. In February 2022, Moscow had planned to take control of Ukraine in a matter of days. But the Ukrainian resistance slowed Russia's progress, and days, as we know, turned into months. Well, we can get analysis now on how the first weeks of the war unfolded from Professor Michael Clark.
Thanks, Sam. This is the actual anniversary of the beginning of the war, the day the invasion took place. So this is the 366th day of what was intended to be a three-day war. And we know that it was intended to be a three-day war now, we're sure, because the Russians intended to grab Kiev in the first 3 days and within a couple of weeks to have pacified and settled the other cities that they intended to take. And so it was a four-front war to begin with, a push towards Kiev from Belarus and from the northwestern districts of the Russian border, a push towards the cities in the northeast, a push in the Donbass, and the easiest push of all, northwards from Crimea, where the logistics were easier, the distances weren't so great, to actually move up to grab this land bridge between the Donbass and Kherson, and then push towards Odessa and take the port, the third city of Ukraine itself. and take the port, the third city of Ukraine itself. And in those early days, our attention, of course, was all on Kiev. What was happening?
I was talking with my mic off. So I say, like, I'm from Odessa. I'm from Odessa area and the Snake Island. Yeah, so the Snake Island was right outside of Odessa. So right here. Just get back over here. So this is Odessa region. This is where I'm from. The Snake Island, we're talking about the ship that got sunk, was right outside. And right after this, I'm going to show you the video. It's a time-lapse video of the different battles within Ukraine and different missiles that hit. Yeah, I am from Black Sea. So they hit, and then they were pushing. So the invasion started like right over here at the very tip of Ukraine. And then they're trying to take over Kiev. But the Russian forces were able to push them all the way to Mariupol and Kherson region. So that way, and then they're holding on the borders right over here. So, but we'll talk about it in a little bit.
Third city of Ukraine itself. And in those early days, our attention, of course, was all on Kiev. What was happening there? Two things were really important. Hostomel Airport, the airfield. The VDV, the Russian airborne troops, took Hostomel, and that was important. They wanted to use that as their jumping-off place to grab the government in Kiev, and then they could use that to bring in thousands of troops to take the rest of the city. They took it, but they lost it again. The Ukrainians got it back, and that's the important thing. So the Russians lost their foothold in Hostomel Airport. And then the second thing, we were all watching this great convoy that developed coming out of Belarus down to the west of Kiev. And we were waiting for this convoy to surround Kiev, along with the forces coming in further from the northeast. In fact, we now know it wasn't a convoy. It was a traffic jam. There were 10 battalion tactical groups who couldn't make headway over the rough ground, over the boggy ground, so they headed for the road. And because their maps weren't very good and their coordination was terrible, they all headed for the same road. So in the end, there were 10,000 troops, 1,000 main battle tanks, 2,400 armored vehicles, all stuck on the same road. It was a 35-mile, month-long traffic jam.
Because this sounds so sexy. That's what it is. He's a professor.
Released itself, it sort of unraveled itself, and the battle for Kiev was over. And so we ended up a month after the beginning of the war, and it had looked like this. Kiev was saved because of the incompetence of the Russian advance, but they were digging in, as it were. They were making progress in the other cities, in the north, in the Donbass, and across the land bridge. The Ukrainians were fighting back in dynamic defense. They weren't able to do very much, but they were dynamically defending wherever they could. You can't defend a single line when you're outnumbered. You just sort of hit where you can. That's what they did. Effectively, at this stage, after a month, they were doing very well, but we all knew they were losing slowly. Think about the war on the 24th of March, after about a month. It was clear that the Russians were in several areas around Kiev, in the northeast, in the Donbass, and in this land bridge to the south. There were 4 big fronts. And although we could see that the Russians were making hard work of it, we thought that they will learn, they'll get better at it. They made no more hard work of it than in the great convoy that was approaching Kiev from the west. We now know it wasn't a convoy, it was a monumental traffic jam. 10 different battalion tactical groups all sought the same road to get away from the soft ground without proper planning, proper communication. And in the end, 1,000 tanks, 2,400 armored vehicles, 10,000 troops were involved in a 35-mile traffic jam that spent a month before it could unwind itself. That was monumental. But that's where the war seemed to be after a month. We thought they'll get it right. They'll move in on these areas and try probably to move into the area east of the Dnieper River and take the whole of this eastern part of the country. But that's where we are today. Just look at the difference. The red areas indicate where the Russians occupy. The yellow areas are the 2 fairly big areas that the Ukrainians have liberated. So Kharkiv Oblast, Kharkiv region, they've got right through to the border of Luhansk. And in the west, they've taken back a lot of the Kherson Oblast right through to taking the city of Kherson itself, making the Russians abandon the city. And so here are the Russians occupying the Donbass, which they now say is their prime target, and holding on to this land bridge, very important to them, to maintain control of Crimea. But both sides are now preparing their offensives. As the winter plays itself out, we are expecting a lot more maneuver on this map, and we'll see in the months to come as the winter fades away who has the momentum in the next phase of this war, which certainly will run through for, I guess, the better part of this year at least.
it's a monumental traffic jam. Yeah, so that's one of the examples that I was talking about, like basically sending untrained soldiers to fight very trained military, and he was not expecting that. The Russian forces were not expecting to face this kind of opposition. So I am going to show you what he was just talking about in a little bit of different perspective, and we'll talk about the invasion from actual military standpoint. Let me see. Okay. So yeah, I'm actually monumental traffic jam. Oh, by the way, I got my cup, Xanamay and hazmat right there. So it's part of our merchandise and everything. That we got T-shirts and cups and everything. So we got some hazmat cup. Let's see, right? We might do a little draw, and who wants a cup? Who wants a free cup? I'll send you guys a free cup. I'm gonna have to pick one out of my chat today to send me a cup. I mean, to send you guys a cup. Free one. Let's see. Where is it? A monumental jam. Pigeon does. Pigeon, you want a cup? You want a free cup? I'll send you one. All right, let's see. The monumental jam. I love it. Okay, so this is what he was talking about. Woohoo! Pigeon, hit me up. Hit me up on Discord, and I would not share your address or anything. I'll send you a free cup. Why is my chat so slow? Okay. I'll let you. There's this cup, and then there's multiple other cups that you can choose from on the website. So choose one. I'll send you a free cup. Okay. So this is what he was talking about, right? So this is basically territorial shifts in Ukraine since the whole war began. Of course, Pigeon, you're like my, awesome supporter over here. I wouldn't have a conversation. I would just have a conversation with myself. But it's all right. Sometimes it's okay to have a conversations with yourself. Okay. This was in February 24th, right? And basically in yellow, it indicates the Russian occupation, how everything started happening. So this right here, this region was occupied Russian occupation since 2014-15 area. And obviously Crimea was annexed in 2014. But from Crimea, they started occupying right here. And from the battlefields. Dave, you want a cup? Well, he said Pigeon wants one, so Dave, that's not going to get a cup anymore. All right. So this is by every day where the Russian occupation started of Ukraine. And then as you can tell, this is by March 11th. And so they're trying to push. And so in the blue, this is where the Ukrainian counteroffensives. So obviously they were trying to protect Kyiv. Boom. That's in April. So Ukrainian offenses literally take over the northern territories. Snooze, you lose. And then so the Lugansk, Crimea regions. So these, obviously, they took it back. These territories. They took back Kharkiv, and this was a big win for Ukrainian forces. and they start pushing them towards the eastern border of Russia. There is a river right here, and what they did, the Ukrainian forces pushed at later on time, they pushed the Russian forces towards that river so they can get cut off. So they took over the Kharkiv region, and then they keep pushing the Russian forces. So it's any Eastern neighbor supporting Ukrainian forces. Yes, they are not directly supporting them within a fight because they can't. The Eastern neighbors, I'll show you the map in a minute and you'll be able to understand. Okay, so this is in January. Okay, so the Ukrainian people push. There's a Dnipro, there's the river right here. So they push them all on the other side of the river because it's easier to control the forces around the river. So that way, because obviously you can see it coming from further away, and they took back this portion. So as of right now, as of today, this portion right here is occupied by the Russian territories. I'm gonna get in a minute why this is important, because this is a very strategical point for Russia to even take over these areas. So you guys know about the pipeline, right? You guys know about okay, let me see. I should get a little bit of music in here. I don't want to, honestly, no. Today we're gonna do with no music. Today all you're gonna do is listen to my voice. So the pipeline, I am another reason why I like when people are on my panel so they can talk while I'm doing all of this research and everything. I give so much credit to the people who actually do this live all the time, because my brain racing around like crazy. So the Nord Stream pipeline, and I'm gonna get to your question in a minute. Hopefully the newer tanks help. Yeah, me too. So Nord Stream pipeline, oh wait, I do have a photo of it. I do have a photo. Or I do not. Nope. I don't know. Let's just look it up. Let me share my screen with you so that way you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so let's get to Google. For Nord Stream pipeline, it's actually an extremely important pipeline in Europe, because so Nord Stream pipeline actually feeds. I'm gonna get you guys over here. So Nord Stream feeds through to Germany. It feeds through over here, through this area to Germany. So it's one of the largest gas supplier pipeline for Germany. So right here, right, and then it feeds in all the way. Wait, what are these names over here? Okay, so Nord Stream pipeline, that's a leverage that Russia has over Germany. Okay. Thank you. Hi, Space Monster. We are good. Okay, so Nord Stream pipeline, right? It runs from Russia all the way to Germany. It's the main gas supply to Germany, because that's another reason why Germany took a little bit longer to say that, okay, because they get all the gas from Russia. What Putin didn't, because he thought he has this big card in his hand to too big UN ally is Germany, right? But what is pushing Germany to do is start researching and start doing more in the natural resources, more into finding out how they can upgrade their system so they don't rely on Germany. So this is one of the most important things. So there are different pipelines run. Let's see, Russian gas pipelines. So just kind of like to put it a little bit in a perspective, because they are. Come on, give me a map. I don't want to see all of this. What is this? Let's just find you guys a video. There you go. Why is it important? Okay. I really don't like some of the stuff. Anyways, I'll post a little video in the community once I find like a really good video why the pipelines is important. So basically, there's another pipeline that's running through Ukraine, and Putin doesn't want to pay taxes to Ukraine to actually, because they are relying on all of this stuff. They're relying on having Ukraine this pipeline. So another reason why they try to take over Crimea is because they wanted to feed that pipeline through the Crimean border, or through the Crimea into Black Sea, and then that way you can feed other pipelines or other countries. And another reason it was important for them back in the day to take over the Lugansk and Donetsk region is because the Lugansk and Donetsk region is located where he can reroute the pipeline from Ukraine. He can basically cut off completely from Ukraine and then reroute it through there. And they used to call Crimea as the window to Europe. The window to Europe is because it has one of the largest one of the largest shipping ports that ships out a lot of the different supplies. And so for him to actually to be using that shipping port, he had to deal with Ukrainian officials because Crimea used to belong to Ukraine. And when he annexed the Crimea to Russia, he doesn't have to deal with that. So in a video that we watched earlier, actually stated where they're trying to push towards Odessa and take over the Odessa. What they're trying to do is cut off Ukraine from completely having any ports, because Odessa is the only large shipping port that Ukraine has left in any kind of waters, because Ukraine is surrounded by land masses and Black Sea is only one type of water that they can utilize to ship out the goods. And Russia, even though Russia is so big, it doesn't have, the only body of water it has, the warm body of water it has, is the Black Sea. And the Black Sea, that's why they call it the window to Europe, because it's the only sea that they can have to supply to Europe through any kind of goods. So another thing that I do want to talk about is Ukraine, they used to call the breadbasket of the world. So if you notice, the Ukrainian flag is yellow and blue. Yellow, it means the grains that producing the grains, and the blue is the sky. So Ukraine's always been the breadbasket of the world. And right now, since the war is happening within Ukraine, that breadbasket is getting pretty dry. So the farmers within Ukraine right now, they're trying to do anything. Yeah, he did that. He did do that. So the farmers, they're trying to do anything and still keep the production going, despite the war that is going on. They're still trying to, because their economy still have to keep going. The economy of the world still have to keep going. And the grain from Ukraine is getting supplied to multiple countries, to multiple African countries, to multiple Middle Eastern countries. And so now there is a bread shortage, is because of this war that is happening as well. Let's see. You were talking about if there are any other countries are supporting Ukraine. Yes, so there are. Let's see. Let's pull it up, the Ukraine map really fast. That way I can show you. Okay, so Ukraine map is right here, right? I'm gonna do this. There you go. So the Black Sea, and I was telling you the Crimea is right over here. So there is one of the large pipelines that actually heading through the Crimean border into here. There's another pipeline. It calls Turkish pipeline. So it's literally just feeding the Turkey, and then the surrounding areas. But this pipeline is heading through Crimea and the eastern border of Ukraine. Well, there is another one that's heading through here, but what they can do, the Russians can reroute this pipeline through the regions that they can take over and annex them. And that's Catherine Great was actually German. Okay, so we don't want to talk about Catherine the Great because we had a statue of her in Odessa, and because she was ruling under the Russian or the Russia, right? And they wanted to get rid of anything that has to deal with Russia because Ukraine has suffered greatly by the different Russian oppositions, especially Holodomor. And I'll make a video about the Holodomor, where the Stalin's regime oppressed so many Ukrainians, and there were about 5 million Ukrainians got starved through the propaganda. The whole Eastern Europe have been battling for a long time. Indeed it has. So Poland, let's see, Poland is part of the UN, right? Poland is part of the UN, and Romania is part of UN as well, so Moldova is not. And then there are actually the people are saying that Moldova could be next because right around the eastern border of Moldova there is a lot of Russian oppression and it's been happening. So there are Russian troops right here on the eastern Moldova, and they've been feeding a lot of propaganda as well. So they're saying that Moldova could be next. So they don't particularly, maybe some people, some Polish soldiers or some people actually went to fight in the foreign fighter group in Ukraine. But Poland is supporting with a lot of refugee influx. Polish people have received a lot of Ukrainian refugees, and Romania have received a lot of Ukrainian refugees, Germany and everything else. Think about 18 million border crossings got recorded on since the war started. 18 million. So everybody all through here. But Russian people who are fleeing, they cannot go to any UN nations because their borders are closed for Russian travelers. So they're fleeing to either Turkey, Georgia, Tbilisi, any other Kazakhstan. Oh, there's actually in the news they were talking about Russian people actually landed on the US side. So this island, St. Lawrence Island, actually belongs to United States. Speaking of that, some people say that like, oh, well, Russia's so far away, why do we have to worry about it? Russia is not that far. This is Alaska. This is Russia. Alaska, Russia. And there's a border right over here. This little island is literally the border of Russia and United States. So yes, we're sharing a border with Russia. So this island, they're saying there are couple people from Russia, from a very small town, Cagnigro, right over here. They took a boat and then they landed on this island, and now they're seeking refugee. So these waters are extremely rough, and the fact that they actually made it to this island, it's more power to them. So there is a very, very small town. It's indigenous population. Where is it? It's in here. So somewhere in here where they landed. remember. I think it's like, oh, there it is, Gamble. Very, very, very tiny, tiny, tiny town where they landed, right here. And then they're seeking refuge from Russian for make benefit, glorious nation. For it. For make benefit, a glorious nation. All right, you guys. Well, this has been fun. It's been an hour and a half. You know how I don't particularly like to have extremely long streams. All I wanted to do is just kind of to put a little bit perspective from what I know, and then if anybody else had any questions. And having Lori on a panel was wonderful, and having everybody else over here was wonderful in the chat, and some new subscribers as well. So it's very lovely. Space Monsters, good to see you. Pigeon Mac, Dave, finally catching my life. And I had some other people popped in the chat earlier, so it was absolutely wonderful. And don't forget to hit that like button too. So much to learn. Thank you so much for the lesson. I'll hit up on Discord. Yes, I will send you a cup. I'll send you a cup. I'll let you. I have a couple other cups. And so, Pigeon, you get a free cup today. Let's see. Who's this? Fort Wood soldier, her flagship 42 Romeo Iraq warlogs catch me sometimes. Pinkman show. Okay. Fort Leonard soldier. All right. So thank you. I hope it was very knowledgeable, and keep your hearts and prayers with the further, and hopefully this war doesn't last another year. And hopefully something will happen, and something will happen extremely soon, because interesting to hear. I have done a liver on Holodomor. So I'm actually in process. I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. I am able to find somebody who can help me with video editing, because obviously some video editing I don't have the greatest video editing skills, but it's quite all right, because I can do the research on the topics and actually talk about the topics and bring them to you as much as I can. So we're trying to do some videos, educational videos, because the original start of this channel is things you might want to know. And I started this channel actually about a year ago, of what is happening within a war. And what I was going to do is create the little videos why some things are important. Hence why I have two videos from a year ago. There is happy little nuclear accidents, basically nuclear accidents that didn't happen, and cluster munitions and why they're so important, and the fact that they are banned by Geneva Conventions. So we're trying to get back into some of the videos like that. And I'll talk about Holodomor, I'll talk about some of the gas pipelines, a little bit more prepared. And that way I'll give you like a good 10 minutes educational videos. So this is what's happening in the works. Okay, let's see. Chemicals, toxic exposure is real topic you should start talking about. And what do you know? Yeah, I can. This is my background. This is my master's degrees, and this is my military background as well. Exactly. And there is a variety of topics. I'll send you. Actually, you know what? Right before we leave, I will do a little Discord invite, and anyone. My Discord is fairly open right now. I only do invites on my live streams. And you're more than welcome to, if anybody else is on Discord, more than welcome to jump into my Discord and have different suggestions for the topics, because we do have a chat over there to suggest different topics, and some of them are very, very important. So I start doing my research as of right now, and We'll come up really good script for you and really good video. Yes, sometimes there is live music. There is sometimes live music. It's fun. Discord is fun. We do little live streams and everything. That's okay. Thank you so much, Space Monster. That's quite all right. I try to put out at least one live week, but we are getting very steady with Monday lives, and Monday lives are between 3 to 5 Pacific Standard Time. It depends on the day, and what we do is we go on a walk, or we go. Last week we did, or actually this week, last Monday, we went to San Francisco. We went to explore a little bit of San Francisco. This Monday I might do a stream like this, but Mondays are gonna be taking you away from this little studio area and go check out somewhere else. Depends what's going on. And the topics always vary. Topics vary about just seeing what's around us, talking to other people, having lunch, and that is it. Cooking. Yeah, we can cooking. I can make some paella or something. So Mondays. Every Monday, we're steady about, we'll just call it a random Monday stream. There you go. Random Monday stream. So if you haven't joined a Discord, go ahead, join a Discord, and I will thank you for sticking around, and I will see you on Monday. Right? Yeah, I will see you on Monday. Bye, all.